welcome to the world of 21 Futures, Tales from the Timechain. This book, forthcoming in December 2023 with Consensus Network, is the world's very first Bitcoin fiction anthology. I'm the editor, Philip Charter, and today we speak with one of the authors featured in the anthology, Kevin Morley. Kevin, welcome along to the show. It's great to have you here. How is it all going today?
Well, thank you for the introduction. Happy to be here. Really thrilled to be part of the project. And look forward to seeing everything come out in December. That's going to be a really neat time.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved in a few anthologies as a writer, and this anthology has been great because all the authors are calling it like a project. They're sort of like, right, we're involved. Let's, how can we spread this and how can we make it bigger than just being a book, which is absolutely fantastic and something that I've been really thankful for. And yeah, very cool. So I'm glad you said that. And so tell me first off, what made you get involved with 21 Futures? What was the trigger?
I'm often looking for things to write. I'm a short story writer, like you mentioned, being in several anthologies. So I'm looking for ideas that in word and scope can be short. You can express an idea and opinion. You can introduce characters and their interactions. But you don't need a hero's journey and, 80,000 words to get a story or point across. So I subscribed to a site called Duotrope, and I found 21 Futures listing on there, and it's science fiction, which I haven't been published in until December this coming year.
Cool.
And I was really excited about writing a science fiction story and for Bitcoin, which I'm class of 21 in Bitcoin. So I'm a new person in Bitcoin, and it really excited me to get involved and to write a story about it and see if I could connect some of the things that I've seen in the past couple of years. So, and the things that ignited passion and need for Bitcoin. So.
That's great to hear that you found the submission on the one of the top sort of submissions websites, Duotrope. I'd also recommend the Submissions Grinder. It's a similar platform as well, but for any short fiction writers out there, it is a brilliant place to find anthologies and calls for submissions, magazines that you can submit to. I'm a short story writer too, so yeah, a lot of crossover there, and I know you found it. Yeah, great. So what other kinds of stories, art, or creative endeavors are inspiring you and interesting you in the Bitcoin space?
Stories. I'm constantly listening to podcasts and new venues come out. I know we just had a West Coast Bitcoin conference here in the States, and I'm looking forward to some of the podcasts that come out from that and the interviews and so forth. So those stories, they always interest me. Digging a little deeper in that right now, I'm doing some research on putting together a Lightning node. And I want to build it myself. I don't want to just get a kit. I want to find all the pieces and find out how to assemble it and go through the tech background there to do what I need to do to get it up and running. And HeatBit, which is a heating device that you can use in your house. And that's kind of new on the market as well. I want to do a little research there and see what I can do. I live in the mountains, so a little extra heat would be appreciated this time of year.
Yeah. And we're going into winter as well. So
yes, sir.
Not a Bitcoin winter, but a winter, yeah. Great. Well, that's good to know. Yeah, there's definitely so many great podcasts out there, and shout out to some of the other Consensus Network podcasts, Freedom Footprint, and others, I think, forthcoming. So check those out. Yeah, it's I asked the question because I think it's part of this idea that we want to tap into of stories and art comprising more of the conversation around finance and Bitcoin, because people care about stories and people care about, art. There's so much wonderful like how-to and explanation content, which is more functional. That's fantastic, but it doesn't always attract new people to the space. So that's sort of the mission of 21 Futures, and something I'm glad to say you're part of.
I've also used the some of the AI generators like Midjourney for art to do some investigating. Some of it for some of the works that I write to see if I can find pictures that would scope that out. But I think the tech future right now is really, really innovative and exciting. There's a lot of change happening. And I love the way that Bitcoin ties into that because I think I see it as a lever to move people forward. Hey, I'm not the youngest guy on the block, but I'm excited to be a part of the community. So it's really a lot
Yeah,
of fun.
100%. I think we've got some stories in the book about AI and some of the technological breakthroughs, and
That's going to be
definitely
exciting.
feels like we're on the cusp of this big shift in humanity, doesn't it? In
Yes.
human history. But I suppose every generation says that, maybe not sort of in the medieval period, but our
But
parents
it's
and
tough to
probably
find the people who embrace the future rather than those that cling to the past because it's hard to let go and move forward. So,
great point. Yeah, tell us a bit more about your writing. You said you're a short story writer. What else do you write? Is it mostly fiction?
but yeah, I've had a number of pieces. Well, not a number, a handful of pieces of fiction, mostly fantasy published. I just started a handful of years ago and I'm kind of self-taught, self-led. I'm a math teacher. My writing skills are below par, probably. So I need a lot of assistance. Grammarly is a great tool for me. But I think that's helped me develop a process for getting engaged, getting involved one step at a time. So yeah, I've had a few fantasy pieces, swords. There was a crossbones and crosses, which is a pirate theme with
Yeah.
paladins involved. That was a neat little story that I did. And in that one, I was able. The characters in that are my family, my wife, my kids. So they play even the family cat. They all play a kind of a lead role in that. And it's fun to bring those things into my stories. But for
Yeah.
science fiction, this Bitcoin story is really my first successful, and you've subbed for publications, so you understand what that's like. This is my first successful sci-fi bit. I subbed to Asimov's last week and got the thank you for playing letter, so I understand.
If you get a response, that's something. I think sci-fi is one of the few markets for short fiction which actually pays because there is a more of a general interest. I think these publications like Asimov's and what are the other big ones are slipping my mind at the moment, but there's 4 or 5 big sci-fi publications that I think are bought by non-writers, and that's quite rare for short fiction, right? Short fiction is often writers talking to writers. I think hopefully in our case not, because again there are so many people who are interested in Bitcoin that are not necessarily in it just to read the work of other writers. Yeah, and going back to what you said about it being your first of many, hopefully, sci-fi publications, it's cool that you can come at this from different angles. We've got writers from all kinds of professions and backgrounds, and it's a strength. It's a real strength in a way to come at it. As a science guy, as a maths teacher, you have a unique perspective to bring, and sci-fi's great to explore all of that technological and mathematical prowess.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
Right, so more fiction coming from you. Yeah, I will.
Actually, the story that I just had rejected from Asimov's, my honors freshman English class is using that piece. Sans any, name recognition or anything from me to
Mhm.
review short stories, the story arc, setting, uh, rising and action and things of that nature. And the creative writing class is also using the story for
That's
some of the
brilliant.
same purposes. So I'm
You've
leveraging my
discovered
position in my building
that's
set.
it. You've discovered a writing hack. Just assign
I have
your
access. So
students immediate readership. Yeah, that's great. I'm sure you'll get some positive feeling from that. And yeah,
well,
good to know
connecting
you're
kids,
kicking on.
the whole job in teaching is to connect kids. And I think we do a disservice sometimes in only focusing on larger works. A lot of kids aren't interested in reading. Like I said earlier, 80,000 words is just not their gig. You have to find a way to engage them at a lower level to get them in the game at all. So I think focusing some of the shorter stuff is a great avenue to do.
It's a really, really interesting difference between American and British education is that, to my understanding, in America, short stories are taught a lot more in high school. I didn't really come across short stories at all until my mid to late 20s. And I thought, this is dumb. It's not a novel. It's not a movie. I don't understand the form of the story and what the
Mhm.
point is. So we're, yeah, I think in Britain, it would be great to see, well, and everywhere, because I think short stories are amazing, a bit more focus on that. And yeah, I come across so many American writers, clients, students, teachers who are involved with short stories.
Mhm.
It's great, and there's so much. Definitely a much bigger market and like a genuine avenue for people to care about short stories.
Right.
Let's
And
talk about
writing.
your short story, Lowery Station. It is a futuristic lesson in orange pilling. That's how I'd describe it.
Right.
I mean, I know you said you're quite new to Bitcoin. Are you an orange pillar? Are you somebody who tries to spread the word and be an advocate for Bitcoin?
I can when there's an opportunity, and but I haven't had much experience at it. And like anything in life, the less experience you have, the harder it is the first couple of times you go through it until you figure out, you rehash it in your brain. It's like, yeah, I did that approach wrong, or I should try this next time. My MC in the story is a little more devoted, committed, experienced. He's lecturing at I call it a coinference, but
Mhm.
so he's got experience at that. I also think when you're talking about Bitcoin and you're talking to people, there's a readiness in the other person, or there isn't. So if you're just beating your head against a wall, your knowledge base isn't going to really help you. But if somebody's eager to learn, if somebody is interested, somebody's already hit rock bottom and trying to find a way out, which I think is really kind of the case for my second character. And she's lost. So I think those two coming together, he provides her first in his persona, he's anchored and he knows what he's doing and where he wants to be. And for her, and there's a great age difference between the two. I mean, he's a college professor, probably my age or a little older. Um, she's 20, 25 years old and just trying to figure out where to go in the world, or on the space station in this case. So there's a gap there. Um, but she's looking for something, and this guy who just radiates confidence and assurance and just life purpose really catches her up. So that's kind of how it
Yeah,
starts.
I wanted to mention, I was just about to say that the professor is such a confident character without being smarmy or smug or, too glib about, being a know-it-all about Bitcoin. I think it's a really good lesson for everyone in how to approach people with confidence. And yeah, I also like what you said about the difference between these characters. It shows how people can be brought together, but it does require people to hit that rock bottom or people to be open to change. And normally, we're only open to change when we have to be.
Correct. We have to be when we want to be, but in order to want to be open to change, you have to be looking. So,
Yeah, for sure. Tell us a bit more about the process of writing the story. Where was the How did the idea come about?
well, I was thinking when I saw the prompt, I was totally excited. I'm like, I really want to write for this. I hope I can come up with something that's going to work. And then I start bouncing a few things through my head of how I can start. And then I kind of came up with the idea that what I want to do is I want to capture a little bit of my experience in the past 3 years, a year leading up to getting into Bitcoin itself, of study and things. So I wanted to hit on some of the things that I've seen some of the phrases I've heard, some of the people in the space. So um, the two stations I mentioned, the space stations in the story are the Lowery Station and the Alden Station. And Jason Lowery and then Lynn Alden are prominent characters since I've been involved in Bitcoin. So I really go out and I phrase most of my story around the time frame that I've been in. So there are characters, there are lines, there are phrases, and I'll cover one of them when I start my story. I actually led with it, and then we edited it down a little further in the first paragraph, where I try and put these, like, I don't know if there's so much Easter eggs. I'm not that clever, but they are touch points to culture, which I wanted to hit on from our time frame right now, just to kind of embed them in the story as we go through. So there are a lot of little references that are in there.
Yeah, I think that's true of many of the stories in the book. I mean, I don't know
That's
if we could
outstanding.
rebrand Easter eggs as sort of Easter nodes. I don't know. How could we? Overthinking this maybe, but there's so many Easter eggs that hopefully people will find and get, and some very exciting kind of secret ones. Probably shouldn't be saying anything this, but if you're watching this, and then if you're reading the book, read the book very carefully. That's all I say. It could be a great benefit if you do so.
That would be fun.
Yeah. So I guess it's time. Let's hear a little bit of the story then, Kevin. Yeah, if you're ready, let's read a bit from Lowery
I
Station.
have it here. Lowery Station Terminal. Also, this is, I don't have the latest edit, so there might be a handful of phrases or uh, comments in here that are a little different in the printed version, but this is going to get us pretty close to real life here for what I'm saying in the story. So
Great. Okay, thanks. Take it away.
she leaned against the column nearest my couch in the Lowery Station launch bay and pinned me with a raised eyebrow look. "Hi there, sailor," she said. Her hair was slicked to one side, traces of starburst colors washing through in a faded array of one-time glamour. Her clothing matched her hair's old, defeated approach to fashion consciousness. She had a look of a late teen or early 20-something. I closed my copy of the Generational Standard and folded my hands on the book. Looking up, I asked, "Can I help you?" "Sure. I need a lift. Looks like you're going my way." "I'm sorry," I offered. "Which way is that?" "I need to get off this station," she fretted, wringing her hands. "There are no jobs, no opportunities, no life for a girl like me." I had something to say about the model of girl she presented, but I decided to tack differently in our conversation. I tapped my book and thanks for the self-check and began. "They're saying there isn't any work here. I just came from Bitcoinference 2121 and the place was bubbling with energy. Lots of work there, too." "Oh, no," she eyed me suspiciously, stepping back from the column. "You're one of those kooky converts, are you?" She waved her hands in the air in mock terror. "You think Saint Satoshi is coming to save us all?" "I don't know about saints and all that, but the saving is real. It is, instead, one of personal journeys and growth and freedom. Freedom of mind, spirit, finance." I could tell by her vapid stare that my comments didn't register. I mean, she heard it, but it fell between us and left silence in its wake. I looked down at my book. Perhaps there was truth in what the essay AI had penned. Our journeys with Bitcoin and the ledger are personal and disconnected from our biological age. Essay AI convincingly argues that open protocols require open minds, that the indoctrination of closed protocols and rules subdue the mind in farces. At the moment, hers seemed closed, and I was also hustling the door shut from my end. "Perhaps I was hasty," I offered. "I sometimes drive straight to the heart of the matter. In doing so, I miss where people are in their own understanding." I hiked my suitcase from next to me to the floor, slid over, and offered her a spot to sit and talk. I didn't think she'd take me up on it. Most didn't. Some only sat down so they could argue their worldview, but she looked more worn than warrior. Which would she choose? "You're not some creeper, are you?" "Ma'am, you approached me. Used a fancy stance and hey sailor too. Why don't you sit down and tell me what has you so interested in leaving? 3 days of die-hard deep dives and rabbit holes of understanding at the conference had left me thirsting for a more mundane discussion. Everyday meetings with normies are inspiring conversations. I find my passion is rekindled and stretched in the quietness of sharing Bitcoin's quintessential beauty. I think I'll stop right there. I think it gives us a good intro to my two characters and kind of where they are.
Great. Yeah. I'm sure people can imagine the ensuing conversation, and you'll have to read that in the book. Thanks so much for reading that, Kevin. It's really nicely read. I think there's
I was worried about
definitely
that.
a role for you as a story performer as well as a writer.
Maybe we'll see what comes. I'm retiring at the end of the year, so I'm looking forward to something else to do.
Yeah, well, writing can definitely fill that
Yes,
space for sure.
yes, it will.
Maybe a trip to Lowery Station is on the cards.
I'd love to go talk to Musk, see what he's got planned.
Yeah. So just before we go, do you have any advice for any Bitcoin writers out there? It could be Bitcoin writers, could be short story writers. What would you like to tell them?
First thing is write. You've got to write, and you should be writing probably something. Doesn't have to be long. Just write a paragraph or two in the morning or at lunch or in the evening when you get home from work or right before you put the kids to bed or before your favorite show comes on. But you've got to write. You've got to be putting words on paper somewhere or on a computer screen. Also, you have to read. And the reading part is really to expose yourself to different ideas, different writing styles, different ways that words come together to express an idea. I have always found fascination with how you can tie words together to get something across, which I really enjoyed in my teaching career and working with kids because I could say things a little differently because I could put different words together and it built a connection because I just wasn't like everybody else who was teaching them math. Another thing, if you're a short story writer, is engage in poetry, read poetry, pen a few lines. It's a shorter format and there is so much meaning packed into those poems that it can really kind of open your eyes to what you can do. And you have to think, you're going through that experience. Think about what you're reading, think about what you're writing and what you're trying to say. Because those are important components of what you're trying to do. And you got to stay connected with that. The last thing I'll add there is find other writers. It is really, really hard to work in a vacuum and to rely solely on yourself for your motivation, for your next steps, for where you're going. Find a writers conference that's local. If it's not local, find one that's, a day's ride away where you can spend the night and you can attend a conference where you connect with people. Find things online communities, but become engaged. If it's your passion, then be passionate about it and engage the community because there's a lot to learn. There really is a lot to learn. My local writers group here in the Pocono Mountains, there are so many talented writers, and some of them didn't start writing until they were 70 years old, and they have dozens of books out. It's
Yeah.
just outstanding to see what you can do and who out there writes. Connecting is important.
Yeah, great. So much great advice there, and it's nice that we can have much easier access to communities and to writing groups now because of the internet and the spread of all of this. So yeah, very cool, and yeah, I think wonderful advice for budding writers. Whatever you want to write, read, and connect with others. And it's a never-ending journey.
It isn't, and it is a journey. There's your hero's journey right there.
Yeah, it's kind of ironic, isn't it? That all writers are on a hero's journey, but they never finish it.
No, they don't. That's
Probably
true.
like my novel, right? Great. Well, on that note, Kevin, thanks very much for coming on the show. Where can people find you online? Do you have any writers' profiles or websites?
I have a website on a Facebook page, author KT Morley. And interestingly enough, when I had to take over the classroom, to connect with my students, because the important part about teaching is connecting with your kids. And I was meeting them online. like this. And it's difficult to build a relationship with teenagers like this. So I would do reads of some of my short stories and post them on Facebook. I titled it Story Time with an Algebra Teacher. So they're there. I'm comically dressed in some of them, but it's okay. It's part of the connection business.
Great stuff. All right, we'll check out Kevin's Facebook page. Thanks very much for coming on the show, and best of luck with your future writing.
Thank you, and good luck with the book. I'm really looking forward to seeing it, connecting with the other writers. That'll be a lot of fun.
For sure. All right, thanks for coming on the show then, Kevin.
Thank you.
See you
Have a
around.
great day.